Yeah, we're going to just talk about, what the benefits are and kind of the emotional wellness that comes through doing physical exercise and how that happens. And at the end, talk a little bit about some strategies to be able to maybe motivate into getting exercise. And I don't know, obviously the audience out here, some of you guys, I'm sure, obviously already have a wellness or exercise kind of routine already built in. And I think one of the things I hope to encourage through this is, I'm not an expert at fitness. I'm a mental health counselor, I'm an addictions counselor, but I do know that one of the things we recommend to people we work with is, getting an exercise routine, because some of the stuff that we'll share through this presentation, and we just know that there's both emotional and physiological benefits from doing that, and people's both physical mental health increase by having an exercise routine. So, I would like to hear what you guys do that obviously have some strategies already in place or routines you do, the benefits of why you do it. I know Kate and Kayla and I were talking before the presentation, talking about some of you guys might be carrying around Fitbits and counting steps, and and maybe sharing about how that may be something that that helps you and encourages you to set goals for, trying to achieve some sort of, wellness or exercise goals, and what's the emotional reward that you get from that. And I'm sure there's a multitude of emotional rewards that you experience. Part of this fun thing about this when we talk about doing practical exercise is almost best if we popped in like an insanity or some of those other exercise routines or strategies, and we did that for the next 45 minutes. We'd all get a good workout in. But our goal here is to just kind of talk about what is going on when we exercise, both a little bit physiologically, but also emotionally, and some of those extended benefits. So the first thing I'm going to do is just start off with a little brief video that I found, just talking about in general kind of what's going on, emotionally, particularly in this video, it talks a little bit about anxiety and the benefits that you experience, physiologically within the neurochemicals that are going on in the brain when you exercise. So let me get this started.
Anthony here for D News, and a new report from a team at Princeton University has found that when you exercise, your brain actually reorganizes itself to handle stress better. We've known for a while that exercise can help your mental health, but it's sort of been a mystery as to why. It almost contradicts physical findings. See, while previous psychological studies have shown that physically active people are less stressed, studies on the actual structure of the brain show that exercise promotes the growth of neurons in the ventral hippocampus, the area that regulates anxiety. And see, young neurons are usually more easily excitable than old ones, so really, exercising should give you more anxiety. So why doesn't it? In the study, the researchers took some super active mice and some super lazy mice and surprised them by dunking them into cold water. The brains of the two groups behaved differently. The lazy mice had an increase in what's called immediate early genes. These are these genes that get turned on instantly and short term when a neuron is fired. And the active mice didn't have those genes turn on, even though they had more excitable neurons. And it's because their brains released more of a neurotransmitter called GABA, which is known to keep the excitable bits of the brain in check. GABA probably sounds familiar to you if you watched my video about the sleep cycle, because it's an important part of getting your brain to chill out and get tired at the right times. Evolutionarily speaking, this is a pretty amazing thing, and here's why. Think about fight or flight instinct. If you're in better physical shape, your body doesn't need to go into overdrive to give you the strength you need to get out of trouble. You've already got it. But if you're in bad shape, your body wants to get you into the most worked up state it can so you have a better chance of getting out of trouble safely. Here in modern society, those old survival triggers can get activated by simple day-to-day stresses, especially since our lives are spent sitting down at work or school or home. Regular exercise could be a good way to get your brain better acclimated to the little stresses of everyday life. I've been making a point of getting more exercise lately, and it's definitely been helping me deal with everyday anxiety.
So I think some of you guys probably already knew some of that information, but I think that one of the interesting things about exercise as we talk about wellness, and especially as it relates to mental health wellness, is there's a lot of contradictions. And it speaks in the video, like the idea that exercising in general should be creating more anxiety because of the working up the endorphins, but in fact, it actually prepares us in a better way when we're dealing with like fight or flight situations, and we actually can remain more calm and reduce some of the panic response that we have. So it helps in reducing anxiety. And I think they'll have a couple examples moving forward on a couple slides where it's like, you think it would be exercise would cause this, but actually it increases a positive instead of providing a negative. So, just thinking of exercise in general, and we kind of moving on with the slide, is that, we have the traditional reasons of why we exercise, and there are obviously the great health benefits that come from that, weight management, cardiovascular health, strength building, and I'm sure there's other ones I haven't listed here, but those are those kind of traditional physiological things that we experience when we exercise, and most people think I'm getting in there, I'm getting an exercise routine so I can lose weight, or, the doctor said cholesterol is bad, so I'm going to exercise, try to improve that through exercise and eating better, or I want to get stronger, more fit, and so we have that stuff. But, along with that, and I think, obviously, I know you guys know this because you're all physicians, that, our bodies and our minds are connected. So when we're doing this stuff to benefit our physical self, there's an enormous amount of emotional and mental benefit that we're experiencing when we exercise, which includes things like reduced stress and mental fatigue. And I think this is one of those kind of contradictions about exercise. I think a lot of us think, to exercise, to make time for this is going to be stressful, and it's going to be hard, and it's going to make things more complicated. Or when I go into the gym, I'm going to be worn out. I'm not going to be able to get through this. Yet people experience when they exercise and they get done with exercising that they feel less stressed, and they feel more accomplished. And in fact, they feel more alert. And so they aren't as exhausted, and aren't worn out. In fact, their body has responded now that it's been kind of generated with this positive, that boost of endorphins, is that it feels more ready to go. And so it gives you actually this ability to to take being worn out and give you a boost. And doesn't, the idea would be if I'm exercising, I'm already worn out, I'm just going to make it more tired. And that's the opposite effect happens. Obviously, it boosts endorphins, which is a big appeal about exercising because it makes you feel happy, it makes you feel better. It's getting that, natural high, that runner's high, that I think a lot of people, look for when they're exercising. I know I work with a lot of people with chemical dependency issues, and exercise is one of those things they use as a replacement to help them get, better. They feel like, that time they were using for a negative habit, which, using the chemicals and everything that comes around chasing that, and try to fill it up with the time of now putting good positive behaviors, including exercise. And part of the benefit of exercise is that endorphin rush that makes them feel that natural high that, that their brains have obviously seeking because of the addiction issue that they've had and evolved through chronic use. Gets greater energy, which kind of gets back to the initial one. It gets better sleep and relaxation, which is a huge benefit. Getting that exercise in here and getting your body on a good cycle actually gets you into a normal strategy, more normal daily structure, makes you feel more calm and relaxed. I think this kind of stuff is, if we're not exercising, then we tend to be lethargic. We're getting, we may be engaging in bad behaviors or eating poorly and stuff like that. All things that contribute to having a more difficult time, or we're storing energy and not getting rid of it, and we don't know what to do with it. And so when we try to sleep, we have a racing mind, or we might physically feel uncomfortable, or like, not, trying to get this energy I can't get rid of. Exercise helps being able to disperse that, get rid of that, so you're able to sleep and relax better. Obviously creates positive self-image. One of those things about it is that even though we may have goals that we're trying to achieve to, get to a certain weight or things, just by exercising and doing it, I think we can look at it just in the moment and feel better about the fact that we've made the accomplishment. Yeah, we might still not be to the goal that we want to be at, but boy, we've done something that moved forward, and I feel better about myself, and that person I see feels more accomplished. And so it creates that positive self-image. It prevents cognitive decline, which I think is a huge benefit, especially in the field of healthcare. So we're able to continue to stay, alert and functioning at a high level through exercise. Some other benefits, most exercise forces us to get outside. I mean, even if we have to get outside to go to the gym, sometimes that's a benefit, that we have to kind of get out and move and not be just stuck and isolated, but it gets us going, gets us outside, especially when we're exercising outside, especially taking walks or jogging or riding a bike. Or playing it like a sport. If we're playing like a soccer or basketball, it gets you out and gets you kind of, with other people or around other people. Improves memory, One of the things that, we find out, I've worked in the addiction field for, most of my career, is that it helps people that reduce cravings, that positive endorphin burst reduces that desire to want to have, something fill that gap, that need. And so it helps reduce cravings for people with addiction issues. So, addicts that get into a normal exercise routine tend to have less cravings, than would in return have less relapses. Increases creativity. I mean, again, it goes back to the cognitive functioning. It improves cognitive functioning, improves memory, improves creativity. All those kind of, mind benefits that we have. And then it's a positive influence on others. I think one of the greatest benefits of exercise is not only do I do it and all the benefits it have to me, but I encourage other people, especially people I care about, that this is a positive behavior I do, and I example that behavior. I think that about that, and just my own personal, story with exercise is I play soccer a couple times a week, and I get on my elliptical I have in the basement every morning for an hour. Occasionally I go outside and jog depending on how the weather's doing. And, I think I show a good example to my daughters, like how the importance of exercise, the importance of doing physical activity, and, I've seen them wanting to become more engaged into physical activities and being, like playing sports and stuff like that. So it's that influence in others that kind of, we lead by behaviors and lead by examples. And so that's another kind of really big emotional benefit, is not only what it does for us, but what we can provide or show or share with others. I'm going to go talk a little bit about, I was, doing some research and some data collection for this presentation. And I wanted to just kind of be able to talk about some of the things I found as it relates to exercise and dealing with like things like depression, anxiety, and the benefits. And so one of the things that, I have here, and I just kind of put in quotations, taking a run after a stressful day, that is really a truly remarkable stress reducer if we're willing to kind of take time to do a little bit of moderate exercise after we get done with dealing with a really stressful day. Some of the research I was reading says that all we have to do is do within 5 minutes of doing moderate exercise, that you can actually have the benefits of the kind of the mood boosting, endorphins that kick in, with just in 5 minutes of moderate exercise. It did talk about, though, you don't want to go too hard on this, and I think it'll actually, one of the slides later will talk about this. You don't want to go above your respiratory threshold, because sometimes that'll delay the mood boost of it. I think that's actually one of the deterrents why people don't exercise, and we'll talk about that later on. But again, 5 minutes of just kind of taking a nice light jog or getting out there and just getting a little elevated, getting a little, breathing going, we can already reduce stress. And so if you take a half hour after your stressful day and we can reduce the stress, just imagine how much beneficial we're going to be to our family and friends and all the things that we want to do when we're not, in our work environment. We're doing the things that are kind of positively rewarding for us. If we just take some time to exercise and refocus and reset ourselves to be in a good place. It also talks about the data that suggests that active people are less depressed than, inactive people. I don't think that's, you have to be a rocket science to figure that out. But it also talks about the fact that people who were active and stopped being active tended to get more depressed than people that maintain their exercise program. And I think that's a really important thing. Just like any wellness strategy or routine, this is ongoing. So to me, one of the things that's really important to stress here is that it isn't just a temporary thing. And I think that's one of the challenges people run into when they're trying to do things like dieting and weight loss, is they have goals and they try to get to that goal and they reach that goal, and then they stop engaging into that, that the behaviors they started to maintain that goal. And so, if anybody knows anything about like the change cycle and the change process, maintenance is something that's ongoing. And if you don't do the ongoing routine, you'll lose it and go back to the, the beginning stages of the change cycle. And so one of the things about getting an exercise routine is not only getting something that's, doing it, but it's maintaining it and finding something that you can maintain and build into your schedule that's effective. So just some research on exercise. They did a study in Duke University 2007, about, with the sedentary adults with major depressive disorder were assigned to one of the 4 groups that they had. They had a supervised exercise group, a home-based exercise group, supervised being, they had a regimen and people working with them. Home-based was like kind of their own exercise strategy. The antidepressant, therapy group, the ones taking the medication, and a placebo group. And so they did the study, and so the results of the study kind of indicated that, after 4 months, that the exercise groups were actually had almost identical results in remission of depression as the ones that were taking the antidepressants. So, what it's saying is that exercise can be just as beneficial in helping reduce or put depression in remission as the medications. Now, I think that, obviously they both have their place, but I think, isn't it nice if we could kind of encourage people on behavior changes instead of, having them add more and more medications to their stuff so they can make some behavior changes. It may reduce, at least the amount of medication they're taking, or even the necessity of medication to deal with something. In the same study said after a year, the exercise groups still had lower depressive scores than the active group. So why the depression itself, could still be prevalent and it's still there, the way they scored it, or where they were looking for symptoms of depression being active, actually had lower scores after a year than the inactive group. So the long term is suggesting that exercise actually helps people feel, and I think part of why they're probably having lower scores is that there's that emotional benefit of exercise. Not only are they feeling less depressed just because of what they're doing, but they emotionally feel achieving. It's a positive experience. They're feeling better about themselves and the goals they're doing. Medication, sometimes, being compliant and doing that, but it doesn't necessarily, sometimes medications, as I think some people look at it as negative as they have to take something ongoing. And so it doesn't necessarily always create that emotional reward or positive self-image that can come from something like exercising. So I just have a little video that talks a little bit more about a couple other studies. I think it reinforces the study that I just talked about, and then it has a couple other ones that talk about the benefits of exercise and how it helps with depression. So let me get this going.
Welcome to Visual Knowledge. Let's talk about depression and exercise. I'll be making reference to 3 studies. So let's first talk about a study done in 1999. 156 people engaged in this study, and they comprised of both male and females. One group did exercise, one group took medication, and the third group did both exercise and medication. After 16 weeks, the exercise group was found to be equally effective in reducing depression. Now let's go to a second study that was done in 2005. The subjects walked fast for 35 minutes 5 times a week. This showed a significant influence on mild to moderate depression symptoms. A third study in 2011 found that exercise led 30% of the participants into remission. It indicated strongly that exercise was as good, or maybe even better, than medication. The theory is that exercise reveals feel-good chemicals in the brain, such as endorphins. So if you're suffering from depression, obviously consult your GP and consider trying out exercise, as there is evidence that this is a viable strategy.
Again, I think it's just reinforcing things that we probably already know, but it talks a little bit about these studies, just talking about how exercise it can be an effective treatment for helping people that are dealing with depression, or if you're just feeling depressed. You don't necessarily have to have the major depressive disorder to reap the benefits of this. I think it kind of helps. If we're already in a good place, just enhances that good place. And if we are feeling down or running into like roadblocks with life, because we all have times when we are challenged by things, that exercise can be a tool to kind of help boost us and get us back into a positive place. I found it was really great that just talking about even walking, making the time to do that on a regular basis will help reduce the symptoms of feeling depressed. I mean, like, to me, that's powerful. So we're not telling people they have to get out and do a marathon, which obviously some people find that rewarding, get real fit and get into a lot of intense training. But just even doing mild activity and being involved is going to help reduce symptoms. I think, to me, that's really important. Some of the videos I'll show and some of the information I have talks about, like, what's the right time frame? How long do I do this kind of stuff? I mean, most of the stuff I saw suggested 30 minutes of moderate exercises, on a regular basis, 5 at least days a week, gets a good positive result. Obviously some people push themselves and do a little bit more. But just that if you think about it, and one of the things with the videos at the end we talk about strategies, we can find half an hour to do that, especially if we're looking at the huge benefits that can come from that. But we'll talk about some of that, kind of the resistance that comes, or the challenges we face in trying to get into a positive routine. So next, I'll just take a couple slides to talk about the benefits of how exercise helps with something like anxiety. So right here, there was a research project or experiment that happened with Southern Methodist University and Boston University, and experimented on the idea that regular workouts might help people with anxiety experience less panic experiences, and be able to deal better with the fight or flight sensations. So their idea was exercise in many ways is like exposure treatment. Jasper Smith, the psychologist part of this experiment, said people learn to associate the symptoms with safety instead of danger. So again, this is kind of like almost not only it's the biological experience that are happening, but this is cognitive restructuring that's happening here. It's like if we can help people actually kind of experience when they have a panic situation or something that feels stress or elevates them, instead of having the response as I gotta, get out of here or fight or flight, is be able to react calmly to it and think more rationally towards that challenge. So the result of that, the experiment were that the people in this, just in a short period of time, they found the people who participated in a 2-week exercise program showed significant improvements over the ones that were in the control group or weren't doing the exercise, and their anxiety sensitivity improved. Like they were able to handle panicky or anxious kind of situations better. And that was just in a 2-week measurement period that they could already see improvements. So it doesn't take a lot to kind of get this process going and starting to experience the benefits, emotionally. And I think we'd actually experience the emotional benefits of exercise much more quickly than we actually experience the physiological benefits of exercise. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second. And here again, just another little brief video, just reinforcing the anxiety, the benefits of exercise towards anxiety.
A very common recommendation for individuals suffering with anxiety is to get involved in some exercise program. Learning how to exercise or keeping your body fit is effective for lots of conditions, but anxiety is helped by this as well. One of the primary components that is therapeutic when one is exercising is that we are moving our bodies. We're getting rid of tension. We're burning up some of those chemicals that have gotten into our system. When you're panicking, you feel like running or getting away from the situation you're in. Well, rather than practicing that, why not learn to run or get involved in some other aerobic exercise to burn off some of those tension-producing chemicals? We also find that when we're physically active, our brains are free, that we stop worrying, that if we're involved in physical exercise on an elliptical machine, playing basketball, anything like that, our brains are pretty free. We're much more in the moment, so we get a break from our thoughts. And finally, we know that when our bodies are busy, our brains are producing good chemicals. We're producing some chemicals that help us feel in better moods. And we're also promoting the activation of the generation of new brain cells. We know that we can generate new cells in our brain when we're physically active. So there are just lots and lots of reasons for people experiencing anxiety to be physically active and fit.
I'm sorry if the video is freezing up. I'm sure the connection is a little dragging here on that, but I think you heard the information. And just reinforcing how the benefits of exercise, reduces anxiety, even though, as we learned in the earlier video, that it seems like kind of a contradiction to what should be happening. There's endless benefits that come from exercise and dealing with anxiety, which I think, to me, was one of the major issues when I talk with physicians that I work with, is the anxiety that they experience and the stress that they experience at work, and wanting to find ways to reduce that. And we've talked strategies for the last several weeks about ways to reduce stress, reduce anxiety, try to improve feelings of burnout. But I got to think that exercise is one of those ones that is obtainable by everybody, and it's accessible, and it's very universally accepted as a way to kind of improve both physical and emotional health. Just to kind of talk about why is it hard to get engaged in an exercise program. Well, the CDC reports that about 25% of the U.S. population, this is 2008, has zero leisure time physical activity. And so that's a huge challenge. And the fact is there's people that just don't have it as part of their routine. I don't know if it's still 25%, that's been obviously a few years ago, but I can imagine it's not that far off. And that's a real challenge here. It's like, again, it goes back to that kind of modeling. If people haven't experienced or seen it, or know people that do it, or they get encouraged in an environment that doesn't do that, it's hard to get going, because it is like anything else. It's hard to develop a new habit. And so when we have a quarter of the population that doesn't even reach out to do that, that's problematic. And how do we find ways to kind of encourage people to get out there and make time to exercise? So there's two reasons I was just doing some of the research and some of the paperwork that kind of pointed out to why people struggle get going on this. First one being is that the exercise mood boost, it's a 30-minute postponement when one exercise is above their respiratory threshold. I alluded to that earlier in the presentation. So it is like, if you overexert yourself, the benefit of feeling better or reducing stress actually gets delayed, and that can be a discouragement for some people, because we're talking here in 5 minutes, I can start feeling better if I just do some moderate exercise. And then some people kind of push it, and if they push it too hard, they might delay that. It's like, I'm not getting what I thought I'd get, and kind of can give up on that. And also the second reason is the delayed results of exercise. Some of us are getting in there for wanting to see big achievements. Like, if I want to lose 20 pounds, 25 pounds, it's not going to happen after that first exercise, or that first week, or that first month, And so the idea is, if I'm not seeing that result, I can get discouraged and give up. And I think one of the things that we're trying to do with this presentation is just talk about refocusing. What am I trying to see what the benefits of exercising are? The emotional benefits are happening immediately. Even if we're talking that you get a 30-minute postponement of the mood boost that's going on with the endorphins, that's pretty quick compared to, like, if we're trying to wait for, losing 25 pounds. So the encouragement is like, what am I seeing the benefits happening now is part of, like, the self-esteem, that I'm feeling better, I'm feeling more alert, I'm feeling more awake, I'm proud of myself, that the influence I'm having on the people around me, showing, my willingness to kind of make a positive effort with my life. For me, I actually, like I said, I exercise pretty much every morning and spend some time on that elliptical. And every morning, I wake up at 5:30, 5:45, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to do this. I have that feeling almost universally every day, and yet every time I'm done, I universally have the feeling is like, I'm so glad I did that. I've never once got done exercising and say, I wish I hadn't exercised. It is very rewarding in that kind of emotional, kind of self-esteem building, And I know exercise sometimes is a little difficult. Some exercises are a little bit maybe more motivating because you don't have a delayed result. If you're playing like a sport, at least there's a goal and there's a game, there's something going on where you kind of feel like you're maybe a little bit more accomplishment than I'm just going to get on a machine and I'm not getting anywhere, but I'm doing, But I think if we could just refocus the idea that you are getting somewhere, you're getting somewhere emotionally as well as physically, and that every step you take is a part of that positive journey towards both emotional and physical wellness. How to get going? I repeat, I'm not a professional fitness person. I don't have all the strategies. I think everybody has to be able to probably consult a professional to find out what's the appropriate exercise goals for them. You got to make time. We've talked about time management before. Find a way to schedule exercise in the calendar or your daily reminder. But also remember, like, you got to find a way to make it important. We can put stuff on a calendar, but if we don't think it ourselves find it to be important, then we won't, even if it's there, we won't do it. And then be patient. It takes time. I got one more short little video to show, and then we'll take time to, bring in, hopefully talk with some of you guys, or if there's any questions out there to maybe answer. Hopefully I'll be able to answer the best I can for what I know.
We've come to a roadblock. To a lot of people, exercise is boring. You don't like getting sweaty. It's uncomfortable. It's not fun. You don't have time. The list goes on. But that's why we're here, and we're going to get you into a brain-clearing, focus-building exercise routine that won't seem too daunting to start. And we're going to get your brain to realize why exercise is essential. Time for our Wellcast journal workout. And we actually mean a physical one this time. First, set aside 30 minutes to work out. That's right. Put on that workout gear of choice. Crank up your music. Get your heart rate up. Get sweaty. Dance around if you need to. Do jumping jacks. Jog in place. Take a break to do a few sit-ups. Nothing too intimidating, though. Okay? And after 30 minutes, sit down with your well-cast journal and write about it. Write about how you felt during the workout. No, not how your body felt. Focus on your mind. Did you have trouble starting? How did you feel in the middle of the workout? At the end? Now, try doing this every day for 1 week. That's right. Pump iron, run in place, do sit-ups, do those jumping jacks for 30 minutes every day. At the end of the week, write down how your mood has changed within that period. The brain recognizes success when it sees it, which means the better you feel emotionally after working out, the more likely you are to do it on a semi-regular basis. And then you'll reap all those other physical benefits too.
The video just kind of hopefully reinforces some of the things we talked about. It maybe gives you some strategy if you're struggling to get going on an exercise program, something to do to kind of be able to see the emotional benefits, not just the physical benefits, the emotional benefits, which I think you'll be able to see a lot sooner than you will the physical results. I put on the screen some resources. Some of those are links to the videos. There's an app I saw that seemed highly rated to help with exercise, and then some articles kind of just talking about the benefits of exercise. So, like I said, this is more about something I'm just kind of sharing some information I found with you and kind of some of the emotional benefits. If there's some questions or things like that or discussion, or you guys like to share some of the things you do, I hope we can take the last few minutes and maybe kind of do that. All right.
Thanks, Nelson. Appreciate all your information. Actually, this would be very beneficial if we could hear from our physician participants to let us know, how do you incorporate, a active routine as far as getting moving during your busy work week? Do you find time during the day? Is there a strategy that you could share with your peers? That would be super helpful. Well, I'll get the ball rolling. We adopted a dog last December, and it's been kind of my task to walk him in the morning. And I have found that as a really good test, not only for exercise, but also for mindfulness. As a time, at 5:30 or 6 o'clock when nobody's up yet and it's still dark, to kind of walk by myself in our neighborhood and kind of connect and kind of clear my mind, but also to get those endorphins going. So that's kind of been my own private time.
I can share an example too. There's actually a kickboxing class that opened up right down the road from work. It's a 30-minute class, so at least twice a week I make time in my afternoon schedule to go down, and it also helps clear my mind. And I can reiterate what Nelson had shared, that sometimes you just don't want to go, but by the end of it, you're definitely feeling better, and kind of take on the afternoon tasks easier even, and then maybe in even a better mood when I get home from my husband, which is always good.
That's right.
Well, feel free either to use the chat function, or if you have a question, by all means, just jump in there. And kind of going back to some of your points, Nelson, and kind of drawing from my own experience around mindfulness, are there tactics to help you clear your mind so that you can start to reap the benefits of not only exercise but mindfulness in the same activity?
Yeah, I think that those are things that people do, and I think people probably have a lot of various different strategies of how they go that. I know a lot of people that use exercise as their kind of meditative time, where it is like you guys are describing, that time to really kind of clear your mind. I think things that can help with that are, there's obviously a lot of available like listening things that people can put on to kind of help them while they're doing the activity, to kind of help center and focus them. Some people choose that time, if depending on what the exercise is, to be able to, if they can, like they can read on something that may be something that's helping them kind of center and refocus things. So I think there are a variety of little tools like that. But some people just find the exercise of being outside, going, and especially going into an environment that's very peaceful, very serene, helps to reset that. They kind of let go of some of those kind of external concerns, because they're allowing their visual world to be kind of taken up by just kind of nature and being one and being part of that experience, which is ultimately what mindfulness is just being part of the present and letting go of some of that stuff. And so if we're experiencing that physiological emotional boost as we're kind of doing that stuff, we're already feeling positive. We're becoming probably more hyper-focused and alert to our surroundings and being more present with that. So I think there's a physiological thing that's kind of going on that'll help connect our kind of mindful experience. And you were talking too, I think we talked about briefly beforehand, like, is there a good time to exercise and whatnot? You know, I don't know if there was specifically anybody said that it was better or worse, although a lot of indications morning and sometimes helps boost your day. They did indicate that the evening time is maybe not the best time to exercise, just because, you know, here we are actually increasing at a time we're supposed to be going to bed. You know, you're increasing your activity at night, and that can sometimes disrupt sleep. So, you know, usually trying to find time to exercise, you know, either, you know, at the beginning of the day or in the middle of the day, especially if we're talking about trying to do stress relief, as Caitlin indicated, you know, something like that, to kind of, you know, making time right after work or making time during lunch to be able to, you know, just set aside and get that in, so you can kind of helps reset and refocus for the rest of the day. So, you know, I think that kind of is important. I mean, it's a tool to kind of help, again, like we talked about mindfulness, recenter ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Actually, we did have one physician share, Dr. DeSantis. She shared that she likes to do yoga at least 3 or 4 times per week. And it's, of course, easier on her days off, but on bad days at work, she's actually pulled out the yoga mat, closed the door, done some sun salutations and breathing, which has helped quite a bit.
You know, you were talking about earlier, I think yoga is a great example of an exercise routine that actually incorporates both physiological kind of components of exercising along with the emotional, mindful experience and meditative experience of exercising. I mean, that's a great example. I appreciate sharing that, because that's something I didn't, you know, hit on, but I think that's a definite 2-for-1 kind of experience people have. And I think that's a great, you know, sometimes I think we get this idea that I have to make the time to get to the gym. We can do small little interventions sometimes that just take, I mean, a lot of people at work go out and walk around the parking lot for, you know, 10, 15 minutes just to help with that. I think anything to be active. I know that they had that, you know, I think it was like the NFL or somebody that they're pushing that, you know, be active for 60 minutes or do 3 times a day for 10 minutes or something like that. I forget who was promoting that. But the idea is just start doing something. You know, doing something is better than doing nothing. You know, so if I'm doing 3 10-minute activities a day, well, then I made 30 minutes, even if I didn't do it at a condensed 30-minute time. So I think it's just about trying to challenge some of this, you know, some of our, you know, roadblocks and perspectives that hinder us from, you know, doing what we could do if we wanted to make time.
Absolutely. Actually, our office is next to a larger office, and for a long time we saw a lady who would park far away from the door and make a big circle around her building, including our parking lot. Obviously, we took notice and wondered what was going on. But she was obviously trying to inject some exercise into her day, and did this for quite a bit of time, to the point where we all noticed that she'd lost quite a bit of weight.
Yeah.
I don't know her, but she clearly was doing something for herself, which paid off.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's what it's about. I mean, you know, I know that our case managers, you know, usually routinely take time when they, you know, during their lunch break to go out and do some walking and stuff like that, just because it, you know, it helps reset the mind. You know, I think, you know, I mean, I'm a big believer in the airplane analogy, in the sense that we got to put our oxygen mask off first before we put the mask on for the people we need to help. And so exercise is one of those, I think, tools that are putting on our mask, so we're able to be not only physically there for them, but emotionally available for people. And as Caitlin indicated, like being in a better mood for the family and friends that we deal with. You know, for me, it's dealing with my kids and my wife when I go home. It's like being able to be there, especially with the chaos that I know that they're going to bring. The good chaos, but the chaos.
Sure. Okay. Well, thank you, Nelson, for leading another great session and providing such valuable insight into creating emotional energy through physical exercise.